Welcome to South Africa Unfiltered. I am your host, Nontokozo Dazela, and today I have a very phenomenal woman with me, a powerhouse. She's a corporate lawyer, a businesswoman professionally, and she's also a pastor's wife and a prophetess. She's also the director of a development foundation in the Wild Coast, and amongst many things, she has a doctorate amongst her accolades. And her name is Dr. Khululiwe Godlwana. Dr. Godlwana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nontokozo. I'm grateful to be in this beautiful studio.
Yes, we are also grateful that you are here. Please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, as you've alluded, I read law and I'm a director of a legal consultancy called the K. Damoy and Associates. And at KDA, which is the shortening of the company name, we deal with issues pertaining to legal compliance, corporate governance, risk management, stakeholder engagement, as well as corporate sustainability. We are based in Margate. Our offices are in Margate as well as in Joburg.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Could you please tell us exactly what is compliance?
Well, legal compliance is a process through which companies, organizations, or rather, let me just say entities, adhere to the rules, to the policies, regulations, strategies, as given, or let me say, as instructed by or as required by their various regulatory bodies. Now, what happens is that compliance goes hand in hand with corporate governance, and it is a phenomenon that looks at the entirety of an organization, from its incorporation to its management, as well as its the running of the organization in its totality. Yeah, that's what compliance entails.
Please elaborate on why it is important and why you have chosen to speak about it today.
Okay. Firstly, let me just say the reason why I chose to speak about it is because it is very important. It is actually utter important, if I could put it like that, because it deals with the livelihood of an entity, whether it's a municipality or a government department or a private business or a public business. It is crucial for every business to adhere to the rules of the sector in which it operates. Yes. And it is also very important because if, for example, you want to trade, you've got to comply. It is a must. Now, complying in this instance, when I say if you want to trade, you've got to comply, it starts with registering a company. You go there, if it's a company that you want to register, there's CIPC, which deals with the registration. It's a commission that falls within the Department of Trade and Industry. It deals purely with company registrations. That is when then, after registration, then again you go and register your company with the South African Revenue Services, because you've got to pay your dues, your taxes. You know, depending on the size and the amount of the turnover and the revenue of the company, there are different categories that one can register the company under with SARS. Then also, if you want to trade with government, especially, there's a central supplier database. It's called, we know it as the CSD. That is where, if you are not compliant in any of the things, these are the basic compliance requirements for you to start trading that I'm talking about. There's something also that is additional. If then you are saying you are going to employ people to work for you, if you want to, and also depending on the field that you are in. Okay, so there are those situations that one has to literally look into and walk the talk. I always advise my clients to say, do not rush to trading before doing everything accordingly, because there will be consequences, harsh consequences, very harsh. Not only financially, but as well as in the reputation of the business. You know, so you don't want to rush to say, oh, okay, this is what I want to do, but you're not registered. You are not compliant with the sector within which you are trading. You know, if you want to have a filling station, for example, you've got to comply according to the Mineral Resources and it's called the Mineral Resources and Petroleum Act. Okay. You've got to comply, you've got to apply for the license, you've got to do everything that is necessary and required by the Act in order for you to be able to get, there's something called a license. That license says to you, you are compliant. That license says to you, you have met all the required standards. Okay, so it is very important. It is important because you get fined. There are penalties, there's a reputational damage if you don't comply, but also as a director, there are consequences to you personally as in your fiduciary role as a director in a company, because then it will go to show that you are negligent. For example, you can be
on your record.
Yes, it goes on a record. Some people get actually struck off as directors, you know, because of a number of reasons. And you find that maybe some are called delinquent directors because they did not follow the protocols.
So compliance is very
it is huge. It is very important.
All right, thank you very much. Could you please explain to us a bit more further about the regulations and the standards, and could you please give examples?
Okay. What happens is, first, I'll try to explain it in a layman's language. There's an act, okay? In some instances and in some sectors, the acts are followed by the mining charters. By the charters. And in a charter, that's where the act is simplified. And that is where the directives on how to engage and how to implement and how to manage and run the organization is concerned. For example, I've just mentioned the mining charter. I mentioned earlier on that there's the Mineral Resources and Petroleum Development Act. In that act, that is the feeder to anything that has to do with mining and you know, the management of and the running of filling stations, for example, or the selling of lubricants. But at the end of it all, then you find that in other instances, there are norms and standards, okay? You find that a particular government department, for example, has norms and standards. In a particular private company or let me say a corporate, you'll find that there's a strategy. They have a policy that follows the act, and then they have the strategy. It is the strategy then that responds to the act to say, this is how we. Let me make an example, for example, of the entities that I have consulted and worked for. At the South African Airways, the act there is the South African Aviation Act, okay? And from that act, that's where we took everything that had to be developed into a policy that is guiding the running of South African Airways. Okay, and then from there are strategies for each of the business units within. I'm sorry, I'm going to speak a corporate language that maybe the viewer may not understand, but in trying to explain this, I would like everyone to understand that the act is the overarching.
Like look it up because
yes, they are there, or they are freely available on the web. And then there are also, I've made mention of the Minerals Act, I've made mention of the Aviation Act, and then coupled with the acts, there are regulatory bodies, okay? The regulatory bodies, for example, I will say, for example, in the railway space, there's a railway regulator, okay, which is what PRASA used. You know, in fact, not what PRASA used. PRASA is the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. It is what PRASA adheres to, okay, as a state-owned entity, to say, okay, in order for them to have a license, by the way, in order to them to have an operational license, because the regulator can actually revoke your license. They can actually say, stop, you have not met this and this and this standard. I'm actually reminded when I got to the entity, to the SOE that I'm talking about. My group CEO gave me all the files for me to review. It was my first job. I mean, I was starting a job there. And me being a compliance and corporate governance expert within the office of the group CEO, I had a responsibility to advise the group to say, guys, I see and appreciate that you have renewed your license, but in some instances, the regulator renews the license with conditions. If you don't meet those conditions, train will stop.
Okay.
Yes, trains will stop. So it's the same with the airlines. They will stop. Even if, for example, just the little simple things, I'd like to bring it closer to home. You know, we have a lot of NGOs and NPOs here, and the National Profit Organization Act is the act that governs everything that has to do with the running and the management of NPOs. Okay, if, for example, you want to start an NPO, you have to comply. How do you comply? You register with the department for an NPO. You take with you a constitution. You go with the constitution to the department. You take with you 3 directors. In fact, it's 5 office bearers, but 3 of those must be directors, must be, people that you as a community or as the one who is actually starting up an NPO have agreed to say, you are going to be directors in this NPO. Okay, so it is crucial. It is a necessity that in every sector that one gets into, first find out what are the regulations that govern the sector that you are in. The other example that I'd like to give is here there's a lot of construction that is going on. And I know there are a lot of people who love to be in construction. But before you go and register the company, yes, but know that in your registering a company, there's a commission called CIPC that is going to want your returns after every 6 months. For example, there is South African Revenue Services that is also going to require for your company's returns. Failure to do that then means that you are penalized. That's why you find in most instances a number of people, being blacklisted. If I say blacklisted, I mean you not by anybody else, not by your usual credit bureaus and stuff, but within the system at SARS, you will incur penalties, which if you fail to pay, then you cannot be able to trade until such time that you have either negotiated to pay those and keep to the promise that how you're going to pay those penalties up. So it is something that is. It is a must. It is the go-for thing to know, get to know. Here we have a lot of people who are in the construction space. They have registered, it's well and good. But then you are going to work with people. The Department of Labor is going to come to you and ask you. In fact, they are not going to come to you. You are supposed, let's say you get a project. You are the one who's supposed to register to the department and declare that there is a project that is starting on such and such a day. That is compliance. Once you've done that, there's also a requirement for you. You must register your employees. There's a policy called COIDA. This is the policy that safeguards employees from injuries and diseases that they may contract whilst they're in the place of work. Okay? Because should anything happen to your workers and they are not registered for COIDA, you are responsible for them, for medicals and everything else, for all the expenses. There's also the unemployment fund. You cannot employ people and not register them on the unemployment fund, because should anything happen to their jobs, that's their first point of call for them to say, I was employed, the company was paying UIF on my behalf, now I'm coming to claim, just so that in the meantime, I can be able to look, yes, I can have something to look, to have whilst I'm looking for a job. So it is all those things that are very important. As someone who is in construction, there is I know we call it very popularly CIDB. The act which is regulating construction, it requires that you register with the CIDB. CIDB now is one of those regulatory entities within the system where you're supposed to go and register. If you're a starter, for example, depending on whether you're in any of the, because there are different codes within the CIDP levels, whether you're a starter in building or it's in road marking or any of those, you need to register. But then what happens is, for you to be able to grow, that's why I was saying, if you do not comply, then your company will not grow. For you to grow, even in grades, you've got to comply by reporting, and when you apply for another grading, it means you've got to reach a particular level in as far as your income is concerned, but also in as far as your experience is concerned. In some instances, it is the level of your experience that is commensurate with the funds that are approved in your bank account or in your bank statements that enable you to be graded up to another level. So it's compliance applies everywhere, everywhere.
All right. Please tell us exactly who within an organization is tasked to ensure that compliance is maintained.
Okay, in the area of private companies, it starts with the shareholders, because they are the ones who say, okay, let's get together, let's start a company, right? And then they are required by law, by the Companies Act, to sign, to first get into the agreement, which is called the shareholders agreement. Okay? In that agreement, that's where everything that has to do with how they wish, it's their wish list of how and what they want to be done, and the reasons especially of why they are getting together, why they are going to go into shareholding. Okay, that's the primary element. This is after they have registered the company. Okay, and within the registration of the company, there's something called the Memorandum of Incorporation. The Memorandum of Incorporation outlines the nature that the company is going to take. Okay, and it sets out the standard operation procedures in summary, if I can put it like that. It defines how the shareholders would like their company to be incorporated. Okay, that's a shareholder. And then the shareholder, we are talking about private companies, and then the shareholder then appoints directors. Okay, those are the ones that form a board. They become part of a board. Okay, and then those are the ones that are tasked with oversight. They have a responsibility to oversee to all the operations of the company. They are not staff members. Directors are not staff members, except in a situation where they are, because there are two types of directors. There's a non-executive director and then there's an executive director. In most instances in a private company, the CEO, in fact in public entities as well, the CEO of a company is also a director of the company by virtue of him or her being the accounting officer. Okay, so that's the next batch of individuals who have a fiduciary responsibility in ensuring that compliance is adhered to. Then you have your executives. Okay, in the public sector, the shareholder being the minister. Let's say, for example, the Minister of Transport. At the time when I was working for the South African Airways and for the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, we reported to the minister as the shareholder. That's the Ministry of Transport. Okay, and then you find that then there are group CEOs. That's the next level, because well, actually that's not the next level. You have the group CEO, but you have the board also in the situation of state-owned enterprises. You have the board of directors who are also assisting the group CEO to manage and run the organization, or the group, whatever the constitution of that entity is. So then in the instance of your privately owned, I will say, no matter how small an entity is, as long as it is registered with the Commission for Companies, which is the CIPC, as long as you are in existence, alive, you are responsible for ensuring that compliance is adhered to in that entity or in that organization.
All right. Could you please tell us what organizations often face, the challenges that organizations often face when trying to ensure compliance?
Well, I think it's more than anything, it's lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know which sector you fall in, and if which sector your entity falls within, if you don't know the regulations of that governing that sector, then you are in the dark. You definitely will not know a thing. Also, other people sit on top of the I will say it's ignorance actually. You sit on top of the need for you to get knowledge.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
People don't seek for help. Someone just goes and say, I've registered a company.
Yeah.
And then the company stays registered until.
Yeah.
You know, with the commission, which is CIPC, there is a time when the deregistration of a company happens. So by the time, let's say you are sitting with your registration documents, you're thinking, okay, I'm the director. Maybe 5 years down the line, I'm not sure what is the time frame that the CIPC takes to deregister organizations. But if you don't constantly go and check if your company is still registered, if it's in the right standing, because that's what is more important, then you are doomed. Because one day you'll start operating and you submit the very documents, and the moment you're saying you are submitting the documents on the right hand, the company is deregistered, then you don't have a company, you know. You have to start from scratch. Coming to the central, for the people that really want to trade with government, compliance with everything on the central supplier database is key. I always say the CSD is the best tool that the government ever put together in as far as compliance is concerned. I'm saying this because within that platform, that's where you get, when you look at the registration summary, that's where you get to know and see if you are compliant with CIPC, if you are compliant with your bank account. I mean, all systems are linked. The banking, the CIPC, tax, you know, everything. So it's the best. It is the best. Everything is there. But more than over and above everything, I think, you know, what I forgot to mention was that compliance, I like to call it legal compliance, but also regulatory compliance. We are governed in South Africa by either the Companies Act, the Public Financial Management Act, which is called the PFMA, as well as for municipalities, the Municipal Finance Management Act, which is MFMA. Within those acts, there is also, in line with those actually, there are also codes. Yeah. They are the codes of good governance. That's why I said earlier on, compliance is a cousin to good governance. We have, and I want to say with pride, that we have in South Africa spearheaded for the rest of the world the development of the codes. They are called the King Codes. Wow. Okay, they were headed by the now retired Judge King. Okay, the King, they're called the King Report. It started from the King Report 1, King Report 2, King Report 3. Now we are in King Report 4. So if you are in a government department or a municipality, there are things that you need to adhere to that may not necessarily be the same as someone who's operating at a private sector level. Okay? Because the Companies Act, being the overarching act, by the way, in as far as the management, the registration, the incorporation of companies is concerned, whether it's in the municipality, whether there are certain sections of the act that are applicable to municipal entities. Yeah. Okay, there are certain sections of the act. In fact, all the sections of the act, they apply to the private sector companies. So the challenge really is that people sit without knowing. Yeah. They don't look for a compliance I'll say a compliance officer or an entity or a company that can assist them with information, and for them that can assist them to comply. Do you understand? So it is just that, really. It's, you know, the Bible says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. If you are not knowledgeable, if you don't have then there's nothing that you can do. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Could you please tell us, so for organizations that are starting to focus on compliance, what steps should they take to ensure and develop effective policies?
Okay, it differs according to sectors, but there are generic policies for every organization that has, for example, in its employees. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act is always a necessity for every organization to adhere to. I made mention of the Companies Act. At all times, that's your book of life, that's your living Bible, if I can put it like that, for you to keep on, you know, consulting the Act and checking what the Act is saying, but also then emanating from the Act, it is there that organizations are able to develop policies, because policies are guided by either the Act together with, I mentioned charters for some of the sectors. What does the charter, the mining charter, for example, the charters, they exist to guide companies in developing policies to say, look at your social, your environmental stakeholder element, for example. Then in their developing a policy, it is there that they are going to say, for us to have a vibrant stakeholder management unit, this is, as a company, this and this and this is what we're going to do. We are going to categorize our stakeholders, for example. We are going to engage, tell how they're going to engage their stakeholders and who their stakeholders are, you know. So it varies according to the sector, really. Yeah.
So what are the recent developments or shifts in regulations that organizations should be aware of?
There are quite a number. There are quite a number of them, Nontokozo, but again, it varies according to a sector. You know, earlier on I made mention of the King codes. We started with the King Report 1, that's what it was called. And then because of the developments and realizing that there are some of the issues that were left out that relate to good governance, you know, then we had the King 2 report. After that, then they saw that there's something that is missing. The commission saw that we need to upgrade and incorporate 1 or 2 or 3. And then again, there was the King 3 report. Now we're on the 4th report, because as implementation and operations happen, as governance evolves, there are issues and situations that need to be addressed in the laws, within the laws. So it varies, it really varies. But as I said earlier on, for a number of sectors, there's always reviews, there are always assessments, there are always audits, for example. If for example, you've ever heard that there is an audit is not only to assess the implementation of a particular policy, but it also looks at the adherence into that particular policy or act, but also to look at the loopholes, if there are loopholes. You know, it varies. It depends on what type of an audit it is also, you know, because there are different audits that get undertaken. But the underlying factor is that in all these activities that get undertaken, whether it's under, you know, monitoring or evaluations or audits, whether you call them any of those, it is partly to check if we are able to add on, or if there were loopholes that were left out in the previous policy. So it really varies. It really varies.
So in the introduction, it was mentioned that you are the director for the Wild Coast Development Foundation. Could you please tell us more about that, and also dwell on the things that you do as well that we have not yet mentioned?
Okay, the Wild Coast Development Foundation is the baby of Image of God Ministries. My husband and I started Image of God Ministries, and as part of our community outreaches, we came to realize that there's a need. So that's how we founded the Wild Coast Development Foundation, purely to address the social needs, to attempt to address them, because we can never really address them. We can never alleviate, the situations, but we can never eradicate. But for us, it was to say we could use the Wild Coast Development Foundation as a platform to leverage resources. And to leverage resources are in kind, in skills, in technically, and financially. And when we founded the Wild Coast Development Foundation, which we call WCDF in short, we categorized the entry levels, the entry segments rather, through which we can leverage these resources. We said we're going to set up program areas. We have the education and training program, which is what it is through that we have, for example, the ICT skills course that I'm sure maybe you saw in the local newspaper that we had a graduation on the 5th of July. It is through that program, area that we had, we leverage training programs that are going to assist our community members to be either employable within the communities without necessarily moving our community members out of the communities, but because of the projects that are happening, locally. Let me just make a classical example. We have an ongoing training on first aid, on a first aid course. The first aid course, most of our courses are accredited. And in the construction industry, first aid is a requirement. Yes. In the health sector, first aid is a requirement. I'm very proud to say we had members of the clinic, our local clinic here, Madiba Clinic, who were students on the first aid the first aid training course, and they received their certificates. They graduated on the 5th of July, and then we have other courses that are coming up, like the home-based care, because of the need, again, that, through the home outreaches that we do as the church, we came to realize that there's a need for elderly people and people living with disabilities that need to be assisted one way or the other. And then we have sports, arts and culture. We have adopted a club in our local community, which is a netball club, which we said we are going to support them. We are going to provide resources for them. For now, we don't have any sponsorships. Everything that we're doing comes from my husband and I's coffers. They are called Kingdom Stars, so we transport them to the games. We manage them. We provide them with meals during their outings to the games. And then we have the agricultural development program area. Here, that is where we are saying we are looking at communities that are going to have gardens that are alive. Every household has a garden, but because of stray animals, most people are not able to plow. So as a result, we are starting a project of fence making, because we're saying we want to upskill our community members to be able to make fence for themselves that will sell to them again at a cost that is going to be at the benefit of community members as well. So it's programs like that we are trying to generate, to unleash the potential out of our community members, but also to say you can be employed if you like, but you can also be an entrepreneur. So we are saying that through the program, the Entrepreneurship Development Program. A classical example, in fact, one of the students who graduated from the ICT course in June, this is not a computer course, it's an ICT, Information, Communications and Technologies. I remember in church he was testifying, he said, now Mama, I fix cell phones, you know. I'm the go-to person for fixing cell phones because of the information and knowledge that he received from the course. So that's who the Wild Coast Development Foundation is. We are not. We have cross-cutting programs. The oceans economy is at the back of our minds because we live in an oceans area. But then it falls within the entrepreneurship development program. We have HIV/AIDS, we have social development broadly. You know, we as the church, my husband likes to say, I do not like to preach to hungry people. Yeah. I can't say, may the Lord bless you, and you're hungry. How do I expect that person to even listen and receive the word if the person is, because the person may be there, he's expected to give an offering. Where's that offering going to come from? If the person is keeping that very last 20 rand to go and buy a tin of fish for him or her and her family to eat that night. So it's our way of saying we are the church, but we are a very developmental church. For example, the ICT course that I'm talking about, it is a partnership with our sister church in Joburg, which is Christ Embassy Randburg. Christ Embassy Randburg has a project management unit, and they train church members, you know, on different skills. So we tapped from that grace and we said, please help us. We are here now. Help us. Then they offer the program online. This is an ICT. From day one, you get introduced to a computer, you know, at a distance learning type of thing from day one, and they write their exams. They pass and they fail as well, and they repeat. They get taught typing skills. You know, that we have a very good member of our church, Sister Adhere. She is the one who's teaching in-house, while Sister Ruth is in Randburg. So that's basically who the Wild Coast Development Foundation. And maybe I should just take this opportunity to say we are very grateful to partners and those that have bought into the vision of the Wild Coast Development Foundation. Just yesterday, I'm sure maybe some of you, if you're not on Facebook, please follow us. We're on Wild Coast Development Foundation if you have not seen. Just yesterday, we had the clinic, you know, because we are saying, let the resources come to the people. We're at the Madiba Clinic at the community center. We have built a community center. At the center, we have a fully fledged computer center. We have a fully fledged library. We have learners from 16 schools. The last time I counted, it was 16 schools. Not only from here, that some of the learners go to Port Shepstone High, Port Shepstone Primary, and I can't remember the other school, but it's AR something. R.A. Enga. Yes, R.A. Enga. They go there on Saturdays. We have children who walk for a good 2 hours on Saturday mornings to get to the library because they found that it is assisting them with their homeworks, with their assignments. They sit there and we have very good volunteers. I must give glory to the Lord for the volunteers that we have. For now, we are not paying them, but not even on a single day do they miss going to the community center. For them, this is an indirect impact that we had not proposed for. These are people who have not been employed. Some of them are fully qualified, like fully qualified, who have been sitting at home doing nothing. When the community center started, when the library started, they volunteered their time. And it has been a benefit for them and to their families because some of them have stopped drinking. Some of them have actually found a place where they can wake up and go to, rather than turning around in the yard until the sun sets. You know, so we are really grateful to those people. They've held on. They've held on in the midst of not being paid. You know, we thank God for that. So that's who the Wild Coast Development Foundation is.
Wow. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So you asked also about the other things that I did not. Yes. Well, I'm a professional businesswoman. My husband and I, we own a farm.
Wow.
Okay, and at the farm we have people who are working there, obviously. So we have planted and we're trading.
Where is the farm?
It's in Paddock.
Okay.
It's in Paddock. So that's what we do, and it has actually yielded even then, because even though we don't have funding at this point in time, but we have partnerships that very huge partnerships that are coming up with various government departments. So we remain grateful. We remain grateful for that. And others, I'm in partnership with my husband and family businesses. So yeah, so I am the group CEO, because on one side, in this partnership with my husband, I'm the one who's managing family businesses, whilst he's managing his partnership with his other partner. And then KDA is also within the ambit of LKG. The family businesses are within LKG Investments. So that's who I am.
All right. So for someone who's at home and is inspired by your professionalism and also your corporate accomplishments, how would you advise them to reach the level that you've reached?
Well, it involves studying.
Yeah.
It involves studying. You can either, well, the basis is you start with a law degree. You know, nowadays the law degree is only the LLB. In our years, nowadays it was not like that. You know, you had the choice between the LLB, between BA Law, B Juris, and B Proc. Okay, but now there's one. So you can either register, you can then you can specialize.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I joined SAA, we had a business unit, a legal unit, which was headed by the esteemed advocate Vusi Pikoli. And I had a lot of colleagues who were coming from the state. They used to work for the state. These were advocates and attorneys, admitted attorneys, but they only had one streamline, which was, your litigation streamline. So I would sit with them and I'd advise them, guys, you've got to diversify. You know, it's not only about going to court. There are other arms in the legal profession, which is, for example, what I chose. I refused to go to court. Okay. I literally found it not to be paying me as it would if I were in corporate. In corporate, I advise businesses. I become the in-house counsel. That's what we are called. Okay, so you advise businesses. You specialize in business and commercial law, corporate law, contract management. Stuff like that. For someone who's interested in being in that space, start with a law degree. Okay. Then when you are within these 4 years, then you will find your niche. You will know exactly what it is that you like. Do you like corporate law? Do you like, being in court? If you like litigation, there are so many diverse streams in the legal profession. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So where can people reach you?
Okay. I'm available on email. I'll give my PA's email address. It's admin, that's admin for administration in short, at kdandassociates.co.za. Admin at kdandassociates.co.za. And for those that want to reach out and get to know more about the Wild Coast Development Foundation, they can email at wcdf24, that's the number, wcdf24@gmail.com, or simply walk in. The center is always open. Go to Mzamba Mouth Community Center, or just say, I want to go to the library. Most people know it as the library. That's the most popular thing. Yeah. Yes, so you can simply walk in. You will find our center manager there, Mr. Godlwana. He's a qualified educator, a retired senior educator who retired at the level of being an HOD. So I'm talking about we have graduates at the center who are volunteers, who are recovering from whatever social ills that they once experienced. So it's a place to be at. you know, and if there's anything, we'd love to see the community center busy. Just as it happens, if you go there on Saturdays, you'll find school children, you know, others, I mean, even university students who are here during the holidays, but they have assignments. Some they go there because they want to apply or to submit their assignments. So, yeah, you can reach us there. And also, our office number is 039 880 0239. 039 880 0239. For anyone who has any question, you can call in, then we can come and sit, open a file, and we advise you accordingly. Yeah.
Doctor, it has been an incredible experience having you on the show. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your information on compliance. We have learned so much from it, and yeah, hope to have you back next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And to our viewers back at home, thank you for joining us, and please stay tuned for our next episode only on South Africa Unfiltered.